to go, Colin?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will be starting the committee meetings. The Finance Committee, first, before we start, I want to introduce the two new members to the board, Kevin Lott from Northampton County and Kevin Serafaz from Lehigh County. Kevin Lott, you'll be on the Finance Committee. Kevin Serafaz, you'll be on the Business Committee. All right, turn it over to Chair Hayes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Call the February 24th, 25 meeting of the Northampton Airport Authority Finance Committee to order. Select, can you call the roll, please?
John Hayes.
Here.
Paul Anthony.
I'm here.
Ann Baum. Ricky Gower.
Here.
Mike Stershik.
Here.
Robert Brooks.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Kevin Lott.
Here.
Kevin Lott.
Okay, thank you. Select, do we have any public comment today?
No, sir.
Okay. Action items, just a couple today. First is approval of the meeting minutes from the January 23rd, 2025 meeting. Entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Mike, second.
Motion. Second.
By Bob.
Brooks.
His hand up. Okay, do we have any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying go Birds.
Go Birds. How about them Chiefs? We haven't met since the Super Bowl.
No, we have not. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Todd, you're up on the financial report. I forgot you're a Chiefs fan.
Good morning, everyone. Don't want you throwing me off. You're on the wrong side.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay, so am I. We swapped.
Discombobulated there. Morning, John. All righty. Just a recap of last year's traffic. We had a pretty good year. Hopefully this year will be a good year as well. But that C plus B equals T. That's commercial plus bus equals traffic, equals total traffic. And the C, commercial, is aircraft, and that's what, for the new folks, a reminder, that's what we get a lot of our grants on, is the C. But the bus is becoming pretty significant, most significant that we've ever had. Last year, 11% of our traffic came from the bus, and that equals our total traffic. Last year, we had 1 million total traffic, first time in 20 years. Last year, first time in 20 years, we had over 900,000 in aircraft traffic. So again, good stuff from last year. Just a recap.
Quick reminder, we've got 5 routes today to Philly and 2 to Newark on the bus.
So it is 5 and 3.
Right, okay.
You did a good job on that video. Could you just explain the bus, the attraction of the bus routes to the new guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so the bus service, we talked a little bit about during orientation, but it's really, the driver there is connecting to the hubs, getting good connection to these major hubs with Philadelphia for American and Newark for United. And in doing so, we're connecting to the networks. With American right now, we're able to screen all of those passengers here at ABE before going to Philadelphia, and that's been very popular. So continues to grow, so we're excited about that.
And then January, pretty good month as well as far as traffic, up 9% versus last year, total traffic. And again, you can see that bus traffic is up 34%. Versus last year.
Good to see the legacy carriers up.
Yes, 100% agree with you, yes. And comparing ourselves to all airports, and this is something we're going to do a little bit more investigation as far as our throughput. Year over year, we're up 4.4 throughput, 5.8 in seats. We just want to check into those numbers a little bit, so we'll get back to you on that. But still some positive numbers compared to last year. And again, at one point we were comparing it to 2019, which was before the pandemic. That was kind of our benchmark year. Now it's just year over year because we're long past the pandemic. Again, comparing us to our peers, even though our 4.4 doesn't look good compared to all airports, compared to our peers, it looks pretty good. Same with our seats. And then as far as the month of January, we budgeted a negative number early in the year, no cares for January, but we had a positive month, 106 net income, so that's a good month. Some of that's timing, despite the fact that We got hit a little bit with snow in January. It wasn't as bad as last January. Last January, if you remember, when we got hit pretty hard early. February, a little different story, but for January last year, we got hit pretty hard, and we still had a good year. So hopefully that trend continues. And then Frank's favorite chart, and this just shows, because we're going in for the new folks, we're trying to measure where we are without CARES and miscellaneous income, kind of factoring in how we're going to be able to be self-sustaining, because February, for new folks, is the last time we're going to take any CARES. So we took our last draw this month, no more CARES after that at all. But you can see we had 13 straight months of positive each and every month without CARES and without miscellaneous income. So that means we should be okay going forward when there's no more CARES.
What was it in 2023 that, do you remember what month in 2023 that was?
That was December.
That was December. So it literally is 13.
That's why it's 13 straight. But thanks for checking out there.
You're selling yourself short.
No, I would never tell myself so.
Quick clarification then, Todd, as well. The CARES money we have received, we have not applied. Is that correct?
Okay, that will be in February. We apply it.
But we already have the cash.
Yes, we have the cash.
Okay. So we're not subject to the
No.
hold being placed down in Washington?
Correct.
Okay.
And on that note, we had originally talked about taking 415, I believe it was in May, and we just took the whole thing all at one shot, so we're done with it, so we don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
So we got all the money on CARES, no more CARES, it's completely gone.
We just want to address the
Right.
issue of the cash as opposed to the claim.
Right.
And we've got.
And we were kicking that can because, obviously what happens for the new folks, again, if we don't use all of our care, if we use more CARES, we end up subsidizing the airline, so that doesn't necessarily help us. So we strategically use it as we need it, but this is the last year, you have to use it all this year, so we're all done with it. So even if we waited, we would have to use it all this year, otherwise it would be going anyway. And this kind of breaking down profit centers, parking and roadways on the top there, really starting to see some of the benefits of the traffic and some of the increases that we made in the rates. That was a good month. And then you can see down there at the bottom here, that terminal and airfield, that this represents, I think we talked about this before, some of our subsidies that we have to do to kind of keep our rates competitive. And you see that in the terminal and the airfield. And the bus does pay the terminal. So that's something that they don't like either, because they're going through the checkpoint. Large budgetary variances. Gold Star goes to Connie in the back there. We can give her a gold star for all of the de-icing, hard work out there. Almost $100,000 of positive revenue on the de-icing, so good stuff there, Connie. To offset some of the expenses, we had additional $100,000 over and above what we budgeted.
Wait to see if February's de-icing.
Yeah. Exactly. So we had about $200,000, I think, budgeted for de-icing in January, and we came in close to $300,000. And then interest, that's the accounting stuff, and the conservative number of some of our interest. We really do a good job of kind of managing that interest. And then the personnel, and most of that is on benefits. Okay. Then you can kind of break it down here, personnel costs versus budget, non-personnel, some of that is timing, but it's 1 month, so it's a good month, so let's keep it positive. And then this is something to keep our eye on, which we talked about last year when we did the budget. After COVID, we were growing. We kind of leveled off, and then we were kind of growing. We've kind of leveled off. So you can see last year we were at the 239 as far as FTEs at bottom there, and that's the most important number because that's hours, not necessarily bodies. So a part-time person could be 10 hours, or they could be 25 hours. So it's just the total hours, and that's full-time equivalents. So that would be 40 hours a week, and that works out to 240. Right on target what we have budgeted, pretty close to where we were last year. And then break it down, the total employees by departments. And then this is just our cash flow showing it out 6 months here. The yellow items for the new folks are the items that just were changed from last month. You can see that some of the leases we're pushing it back, some we haven't used those yet. Most of the changes you'll see a lot of times are in the capital, just the timing there, those are things that change a lot from month to month. We manage that pretty well, but it's hard to kind of get them on track every month, and those are big numbers. And you can see there, number 22, which I mentioned earlier, was the CARES, all of that money taken in February, and no 415 that we were going to take in May. Breaking it down, and those, for the new folks again, are 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, all those and 30, all those add up to our total cash reserves that we have of 180 days. And then this is kind of, above that number down at the bottom, kind of get a feel for that. And this, for the cash flow, just to kind of talk about what I said, to kind of make sure people understand some of our assumptions. First one there, and we talked about this in our pre-meeting, John brought this up, all approved grants will be received. Really important. We're assuming that we have them approved, that we're going to get them. We talked about the Trump stuff. If we don't get them, then obviously that's something that could impact us. Timing on our project, we try to be conservative. We're 60 days out on a lot of our stuff and timing. That's pretty consistent on our contractor stuff. 15th of the month, but you can see we pushed back the one closest to the bottom there, second from the bottom. That rack we originally had it budgeted in February. We pushed that out to November at this point. And then we always try to take advantage of discounts and lead times and all that other stuff that we have to do. So that impacts timing as well. So that's, you see that yellow line in there, that's why those numbers change so much, because, $1 million grant that we expected to get at the end of the month is the next month. That's a big $1 million swing in cash flow.
We think the RAC P in November is realistic.
At
this point, yeah. That's okay.
I'll believe it when I see it, but yes. Okay. I'm just kind of breaking down our cash flow compared to our peers. We're still using the 2023. It takes a little bit of time before we get 2024. Once we get that, we'll update that. Usually get that in about July. That red line is our 180 total reserve number, and staying above there is important for us. Any questions? We had a good month. I told them I keep it semi-short, quick and easy, right?
Just like the Eagles, you're
Just
right.
like the Eagle, run right through it.
Thank you, Glenn.
Any questions, concerns? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do you have any questions, any comments for Todd? Okay, hearing none, entertain a motion to approve the accept the financial report, January 2025. Motion by
I'll
Mike,
make the
second by
motion,
Paul.
John.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, do we have any new business to bring before the committee today? Okay, no executive session, I assume. Okay, I think we're good. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Okay, go on.
Paul, we're good.
Okay.
Okay.
Welcome to the February 24th Business Committee meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. So that, can you please call the roll?
Don Gottschalk,
Here.
Justin Grimshaw,
Here.
James Irwin,
Here.
Frank Fasciano,
Here.
Jonathan Strauss,
Here.
Chris Worley, Kevin Surface.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Is there any public comment?
No, we do not.
All right. So action items, I need a motion to approve the meeting minutes for January 23rd, 2025. Right? James? Okay, thank you. Any changes or additions? All right. Motion passes. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Darren to discuss the ground lease with Sanic Solar.
Thanks, Don. So 2 years ago, back in February 23, we actually approved some ground leases for solar development with a company called Pivot Energy. We had put out the solicitation for that. They had left some parcels that they weren't interested in developing. So we've now been working with another company, Sanic Solar, to pick up a few of those parcels. Very similar to the Pivot leases we approved back then. So basically they get 24 months to do their due diligence. They get an option on the property, for the 24 months to go through due diligence. They do pay us a small fee for that option. Once they determine if those lots are viable for solar and everything, and they exercise that option, then it's a 20-year lease term with 2 5-year options to extend. They're responsible basically for everything, permits, approvals. There's some FAA requirements, glare studies, different things they'll have to go through on all of these. Again, all of that's on them. At the end of lease, everything gets returned back to to green space, so they'll remove all of the solar panels and, other equipment will have to be back. They indemnify us as we do in all of our leases, and I think the one important piece is it's rent straight to the authority. It has nothing to do with how much power they generate or anything. It is a set rent, so if it doesn't generate what they expect it to, or, and they don't get paid what they expect, they still pay us the same rent. You want to scroll down a little bit, Sylvette? So you'll see the initial annual rent for the 4 parcels is $122,000, increases 2% each year. Right now, those parcels are under ag leases, and these are small parcels that we really can't do anything else with. So you'll see over that 20-year lease should generate about $3 million. If we were to keep it in the ag leases, it generates quite a bit less than that. About $250,000 or so on those ag leases over that same amount of time. So it definitely is a much better return. It's not a great return, but it's much better than the ag leases. And again, some small kind of landlocked parcels that we really can't do much else with. So certainly, we're looking for a motion to approve the solar leases. Sure.
I think John asked this before, but what, the power that's generated by this solar facility goes where?
Goes back to the grid. Goes right back to BPL, basically. It's not coming to us. We have looked at some potential uses like that as well, but we haven't done anything with any of those to date.
So is there any out for I'm not sure of their name, if they
Sanic.
cannot connect to the grid?
That's what they've that 2-year option period to decide. Once they exercise the option, there's no out. So they'll determine that in the 2 years if they're able to connect to the grid.
And if they cannot connect to the grid, then we'll just get like $5,000 a year.
For those 2, but we are still leasing them. We're also maintain our ag leases during that time, so we still get that at the same time. So yeah, if they find out that none of these work, basically we get nothing other than that $5,000 a year.
There's a long queue line to get connected to the grid for solar.
Yeah, and my understanding, talking to the principal here, is that he has spoken with PPL on all of these already, and he feels confident. But again, we'll see how that all
Well,
works.
it's not PP&L, it's PJ&M.
Yeah.
It's not PP&L.
It's an article over the weekend about the,
I read that.
yeah. So hopefully that'll help in this regard anyway. But yeah, they've got a big backlog. You're right about that, Paul.
Yeah.
Are there any further questions?
The only other, so at the end of the lease, they're going to return the land back to the original?
Yep.
What's to hold them to that? Besides us chasing after them in 20 years?
I mean, probably nothing, to be totally honest
Right.
with you, than that. Yeah. I mean, they could abandon it, and we would be stuck with it, I guess, at that point in time.
Okay.
I mean, being honest.
No,
Yeah.
because, what's going to hold them 20 years to
Yeah.
return it?
There's always legal action you could
Right.
take at that point to
Right.
enforce the terms of the lease.
Right, but
It should have to abandon the equipment, but 20-year-old solar panels are not necessarily worth a heck of a lot.
Right.
But now, you might have more experience in this than I have. It's been a while since I've been in solar. How long do panels last before they degrade to the point where they need to be replaced?
I'm not positive on it because with technology, it's obviously increasing, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay. It used to be a standard, something like a 3% degradation rate, but I'm not sure if that's a 7 or 8-year-old number, so I don't know if that's any good or not.
Did I hear you correctly that you said it'd be over the 20 years with the current ag leases, it's 250,000? That's over the 20 years?
Yeah. The ag leases are very minimal. They're basically we lease them basically to maintain the property as much as we do for the income, really.
I'm assuming you looked into this, because I ask you this every time. They self-perform or they hire in local?
I do not know that, honestly. That one I can't tell you. I mean,
We should ask that question.
I can certainly ask the question. I can ask it before Tuesday, for that matter, before it comes to the full board.
And just one more. They're responsible for maintenance though during this
Yeah.
whole period,
Yeah, the whole time,
the whole time.
yes, that is in the lease. Yeah, we basically have nothing. Once they've taken it, it's on them. It's a ground lease. They maintain it.
And right now, we probably don't do any maintenance here because we're just leasing it out to somebody for ag.
Yeah, we do very little with the ag leases. I mean, other than if vegetation gets high, trees, things like that, that we
Yeah.
have to take, but never anything much.
Further discussion? All right, I need a motion to approve the ground lease with Senate Solar.
I'll move that with wanting that question answered before we vote on that at the board.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
I guess I should say there, any nays or extensions? No, motion approved, okay. Discussion items, Ryan, on capital projects.
Actually, our two approval items, Don, we added last minute. Um, Basically, Thursday, we got notice from the Pennsylvania local share account. We applied for 2 grants, so there's 2 resolutions we'll talk about for 2 different items, but coordinating with Colin, as we've kind of talked about before, looking for other grant opportunities for some of the projects that we're doing. This first one is to approve the LSA, so it's a local share account from the state for a new ARF vehicle. Really, as part of the application, we need to submit a resolution approving the application. If we're then awarded, we would go through actual approvals of those components. This is just really for the application piece. Really what we're requesting, and the max you can request with LSA is $1 million. We're requesting $1 million for a new 6x6 ARF truck, coordinating with Steve and his group. It replaces a 1996 truck we currently have in service. The one thing I saw note is we do typically have ARF vehicles in our FAA capital improvement program, but given all of our other needs with pavement and other items, again, it doesn't hurt if we can get other funding sources to use our federal grants for that. So there really is no local match. The vehicle they did quoted was just over $1 million, $1,099,000. So if we do get the grant, that $99,000 would be our share, which we would budget next year due to the timing. We anticipate, if you scroll down so that, we anticipate hearing if we're successful or not Q3 of this year. So really just looking for the approval of the resolution to submit that application for the ARF truck.
What's the lead time getting the vehicle?
It's probably over 12 months, if I had to guess.
So
because they built it.
It'd be in 26.
It could, if we get it early enough ordered, it could be 26, maybe 27.
Our companies I've worked with, and actually Bobby would be better answering this one, but year and a half, something closed in on 2 years.
I figured.
Yeah. And we're locking in the price? Because the equipment price increases have been
Yep.
dramatic as well.
Once we get notification of the grant, we'll coordinate all those pieces.
Okay.
Hey, John,
Yeah,
you're looking, I don't know about it on an ARF truck. I'd have to dig in a little deeper, but out in the firefighter world, you're talking about a 5-year lead time right now. Yeah, there's some monopoly stuff going on. It's not good, and the earlier we get on this, the better, because it's only going to become longer. Actually, I don't know if Jonathan's there, but his dad sold fire trucks for a while, and he might be able to pull up some information.
I can confirm what Robert's saying, but it's like 4 or 5 year lead time. That hasn't changed since COVID.
Yeah.
That's good input. We can find out from, because there's really only 2 manufacturers that make the ARF trucks. We can confirm what that lead time is, just as a backup.
yeah.
It's still a need. Thanks.
Yeah. It was a couple of years ago, Nutropoli Fire Company replaced their pumper truck, and it was 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. Which, again, all the more pressing to replace some of the old equipment we have.
Any other questions? All right, so I assume that the request is to get a motion to approve the LSA grant application. Resolution for an ARF vehicle.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Jane. Any second?
I'll second that.
Justin? All right, any nays or abstentions? All right, motion passes.
Thank you. All right, so this is another LSA application. This is really for what we're calling the final phase of the passenger boarding bridge rehabilitation project. If you recall, we got DCD grant funding for about $2.2 million over the last couple of years when we rehabilitated our boarding bridges. There's about $825,000 left for some of the improvements. So we're looking to apply same thing for the LSA grant for the remainder. Because obviously each bridge has its own components, depending on what we get or what the residual could be, we can phase them, accordingly, where a couple of the bridges still need to be rehabilitated, replacing some of the ground power units, passenger preconditioned air units. So really all in, if we were to do everything, it's about $1.6 million, which we would program next year. But again, that's really a cash dependent, depending on what we end up getting, or if we need to do everything. But same thing with the other one, we just need the resolution. Again, we won't really hear probably until the 3rd quarter of this year to then program into next year. So same thing, if, get the grant, come back with who's performing the work and that whole piece.
Any questions? Can I get a motion to approve the LSA grant application resolution for the rehabilitation of the passenger boarding bridges? Right. First, and can I get a second? Thank you, Jim. All right, any nays or abstentions? Yes.
All right, after you're done with it, I just want to get back to Paul on the degradation rate.
Okay, all right. Motion passes.
1% a year. That's current number now. That's from a friend of mine that's in the solar business. So that's a lot better than 3. So that means the panels would have some value at the end of a 20-year period. And the likelihood of them replacing any panels during the 20 years is probably pretty remote, unless technological change that increases the capacity of the panels dramatically comes into play. So, but at least they would have value at the end of the period.
Good.
Thanks, somebody.
All right, so going through our typical updates. Again, we're in winter shutdown, but over the next month or two, we're going to get pretty busy with the weather, hopefully starting to improve. We kind of showed this before, but changed it a little bit. So this coming year, different colors are different phases, but really, as we've talked about, we got some of the final packages for the runway continuing, really with the runway edge lighting and the shoulders, kind of the green along the runway, and then the different colors of the different phases of the taxiway alpha rehabilitation we've talked a little bit about. And then some of the purple is really, again, some more grading as part of the runway. And then, again, as we're talking a little bit about, if all goes well, we'll start some of the North Cargo taxiway airside work. So just kind of showing for some perspective of some of them are the same contractor, some of them are different. So again, a lot of coordination internally as well as with the carriers with off hours with some of this work. So just kind of wanted to show that of what's coming. Package 5 for the runway. Again, we're in winter shutdown, but this next phase, when we start up, primarily around April 1st, really replacing all of the runway edge lighting to LEDs and some of the final grading and paving of some of those areas you can kind of see there. And then hopefully we'll get that finished this coming year. Package 6, we've talked a little bit about before, but we added this slide because we're getting closer to start. Really, this one is the fillet geometry widening at Alpha 7, which is at the end of runway 6. Really get that up to the latest standards with the new fillet requirements for some of the turning there. Taxiway Alpha, again, we've talked about. So this one has 2 grants. One is a traditional AIP. The other one is some of our bill funding. But you can see basically the different phases there. You kind of see in blue that we're looking to do, again, starting early this year. North Logistics Cargo Complex, the draft grant agreement is in FHWA review. They basically told us to sit tight. We don't know how long it's going to take, so we're just kind of waiting. But in the meantime, kind of as I mentioned, we are continuing to progress the taxiway and apron design to keep that moving as we coordinate some of the other elements.
And the taxiway is not funded by FHWA.
True. Yeah, the taxiway is really, you can kind of see there, is really AIP and bill funding.
Have we heard anything in regard to these grants and the holdup in Washington?
The only thing we've heard from FHWA is that they were very honest to say that the review time is now really questionable and that they don't know how long legal might take to review the agreement. They can't give us any estimates.
So that's a tactful way of saying it's held up. Okay.
You sure blame it on the
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Ryan, just real quick, which are the federal grants?
So the top one, the infra, is the federal highway grant.
Okay.
The FA restricted account is really our restricted account that Todd mentions in terms of some of the previous land sales that we've had, so it was AIP. And then really the ones we're anticipating we haven't gotten yet is the ones on the bottom, the bill for around $8 million and the AIP for about $3 million.
All right.
So those ones, and talking to the FA just the other week, probably mid-March we'll know timing and with the whole FA reauthorization and that component, what we'll actually end up getting. Because Typically, the FAA will give us a range of what we think we'll get for our discretionary, and then they'll let us know once they actually have all the numbers. Moving on, the parking structure. Again, we've still been having some bi-weekly meetings. Had a good kind of all-hands director discussion the other week to kind of keep it progressing, but still moving forward with the design. You can see some updated renderings as we're progressing, but still, again, trying to find that right size, still a lot to coordinate in terms of costs, timing, but looking to try and finish the design later this year to be set up for, kind of the next stages. So more to come on that, but in terms of the need, it's not really on here, but our overflow parking over the weekend, I know obviously Todd's aware, was just about almost full of 300 plus cars, which is the most it's ever been, actually ever. So again, still continuing to progress.
Yeah, just on that point, I'm assuming it'll be federal funding for that project also?
No.
No?
That one, no.
Okay.
That one's more the state route and
It's not
coordinating with
federally
Colin and-
eligible.
Sounds better.
Could be. Government building demo, again, working to start once the weather breaks, but it's kind of hard to see with the lighting, but really in the next month, we're looking to relocate the AOA fence, which is kind of the purple here, around the site, which also helps with the hotel construction that should be starting again March as well. So again, just coordinating that, some of the logistics and impacts with some of the parking, but more to come on that, which again, April is going to be a busy month.
Is that when the old building comes down?
That's when they'll start, yep. Air handler unit 4 is progressing well. The ductwork in phase 1, which is really the police station, has been completed. The ceiling grid and the lighting's been installed. They're actually just working on some of the ceiling tile installations. You can kind of see, going room to room, but the major ductwork components are complete. Again, electrical's coming behind it. So in the next few weeks, they should be done there, and then transitioning to upstairs in front of the Legion ticket counter. So that's going well. Again, once the weather breaks, we talked a little bit about this in the fall. We're looking to do some paving to the vehicle service road in front of Hangar 7, and we're looking to start that mid-March if we can, so it can get ahead of the April 1st runway 624 closures, because the vehicle service road impacts 1331, so we can't have both runways down at the same time. So looking to get that started again once the weather cooperates. Beta Technologies, we talked about this before, it's not our project, but again, it's on the Hangar 10 ramp. The week of March 10th, PPL notified them they should be installing the feed, so once they get that hooked up and ready to go, that'll be complete. But then as a reminder, in the parking lot of Hangar 7, there's 2 EV chargers they put in for us as well as part of this project. So that'll be good to have down there.
What usage are we anticipating?
Really nothing for probably the next year or so based on certifications and everything else.
But once they're done, up, running, et cetera, what?
I think they'll maintain whatever they need to come back, but there's really not much we're doing.
Yeah, there's really no projection on how much it's going to get used.
Okay.
Everybody's still trying to figure that out with electric aircraft.
So moving on to Queen City, runway 1533 lighting, really just wrapping up the closeout documents, some of the punch list. The Conservation District was going to go on site to take a look at the progress in January, but there was snow on the ground, so obviously they couldn't do that. So we're looking to do that in the next month or so. But again, that's all completed. LED lighting's up and running. The vault is being used. The roof repair we talked a little bit about before. Probably make some good progress this week, but areas 2 and 3 they did complete over the last few weeks, and then 1 and 4 is really what they're progressing on now. So that'll be good to get that project done as well. Again, talked a little bit about this one, the Queen City Taxiway Alpha feasibility study. This is kind of the latest graphic. We did submit a draft report to the FAA for their review. We'll probably have a call to really walk through what they want to do. But just kind of as a reminder, is we need to rehabilitate Taxiway Alpha, which is basically the blue or purple location. With that, and similar to runway 624 here, there's different what they call fillet requirements. You kind of see the pavement bumping out a little bit here, which we'd have to do anyways. But really it's just coordinating with the separation requirement based on the FA standards if they want us to move it to the green, to, which they say if they do, they're gonna have to provide us the funding to do it, or just rehabilitate it in place with the the new standards. So waiting to hear on that, but basically the following 2026 is when we probably get the design grant for whichever alternative they want us to do. Then moving on to Braden, again, the 1836 lighting project, we're just about past 60% design. We did submit the latest plans, you can just see there, to the state to review. Really, we've talked about it before. It's bringing the runway edge lighting up to compliance, appropriate standards, keeping the turf width in there as well, and then we're actually adding these little kind of squares here, the PAPI lights, which is approach lighting for the pilots to make it easier to land at night. And actually trying to get some taxiway lighting included in there as well that we haven't had before. So that should be a good one once we go. But again, grant funding from the state, about $975,000 to get that complete. And really just the chart at the end, kind of update, kind of mentioned before, number one, the project is complete, it's package 4, but kind of to Todd's point earlier with the cash flow, when we submit FAA grant closeouts, it can take 4 to 6 months just with their whole internal time frame. So the reason I'm showing it is because there's still about a $900,000 reimbursement we're waiting on. So that's why we're showing it there. And then all the others, again, we'll track as we go. And again, you can see, some of the extended project costs with the package 6 and taxiway alpha will start kicking up in the spring.
You could stay on that.
Sure.
You may be answering it in the next slide, but I'll ask it anyway.
Sure.
One of the things that we've talked about a couple times here are grants. Todd made the point that we operate under the assumption we'll receive all the grants. Do we have any grants out there that are held up in Washington and that might be at risk?
At this point, no. So timing-wise for FAA grants is June. It's a date in June we have to submit it by. As I mentioned before, talking to the FAA, probably mid-March, they'll know how much money to request. But until we get them, we don't really know. But there's nothing in the queue right now that we submitted.
Okay. How many of our grants, or what percentage would you say are reimbursable? Or are we not on reimbursable grants? Do we spend the money and then invoice and they pay us back?
Typically, yes. Yep.
And is that a small percentage?
They're really all technically reimbursable. You can work through some of the timing, at least with the FAA, but they're technically all reimbursable.
Yeah, basically 100%.
So there's no, I guess to John's point, there's no, or is there any chance that we have done the work, we submit to be reimbursed, and they tell us, sorry?
I mean, typically, kind of as I mentioned before, and again, kind of in uncharted territory, I guess, but with the FAA AIP, it's really a matter of timing, so how much they can, allot us with the discretionary, but there's different pockets. So every year we get around $3.1 million for ABE of entitlement funds, which we're entitled to, assuming, again, nothing changes. So.
But in terms of projects in general, there's, at times we'll do some design work to get ready for a bidding phase and those types of things. So there might be some cash outlay in design that we're waiting to get a grant to get reimbursed on.
So to that point, Tom, you just said it's a reimbursement.
It is.
Not just a grant, it's a reimbursement, right? I mean, planning design, I'm okay with that, but for the actual construction, that's the costly part, but that's also a reimbursement?
It is.
Yeah.
It is, but we can't actually start, if we're applying for a grant, we can't start construction until we have the grant in hand. So it's a little, so design, there's two ways to think of reimbursement. There's reimbursement of you spend the money and they give it back to you,
Right.
which is how we operate, but then there's the reimbursement for design. You can design the whole thing before you get a grant, get the grant in just based on timing.
Mm-hmm.
But construction, we can't actually start construction until we have the grant in hand. So
The signed contract for the grant.
yeah, so in terms of a cash outlay, we won't start construction until we know we actually have the grant in hand.
We're at risk now that we didn't have money. Right.
Well, you proof for a grant doesn't mean you receive the funds.
Exactly. Yep.
So Yeah, definitely some things we'll have to strategize as it gets closer with some of these that, especially this summer as we submit the grants, we'll kind of keep the committee up to date with where things are and what we're hearing.
Yeah, and we're following it as well, and
Yeah.
at this point, I think the information we've received from some of the industry trade organizations is, it doesn't appear to be affecting FAA grants at this point, but we're listening every week to hear what the latest is. So.
Only weekly?
Yeah.
That's all I can stomach.
So, and kind of to that point, some of these here, again, are best intentions in terms of when we're planning to start some construction, when they're looking to complete. And again, as we talked before, some of them are multi-year projects. And again, a lot of this is contingent on if we get the grant funding, what we really just talked about. Even some of the major non-grant projects, even if we're not getting funding, it's tying it in with the cash and assumptions of some of the other projects. So again, we'll kind of update this as we go, but based on what we put in the budget, that's really what we're assuming of timing, which reflects the cash flow we talked about earlier with kind of our best guesses until, we get contracts in place. So that's all I have.
I have two questions.
Sure.
First one is, do any of our state grants rely on pass-through from the federal government?
Don't believe they do.
Or are they just all state
Directly.
funding?
Yeah, directly.
Okay,
Yeah, we don't do any block grant that might
No,
route
block
that
grant.
way, yeah, so it's all state funding straight through the state.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, I know we're planning on the parking structure, and if we're hitting capacity in the overflow lot, and we're going to be taking a bunch of parking spaces out of commission for construction of that parking deck. Are we simultaneously planning for additional overflow parking somewhere to determine where we're going to put people?
Yeah, we're looking at that now. We had some preliminary conversations last week. All of overflow currently isn't open because of some of the air products construction. So there's actually just shy of 500 spaces in there, so there's some additional capacity there. But we're also actually looking at, before we start garage construction, are there areas of our long-term lot that can be expanded, reconfigured to actually gain, right now we're looking maybe almost 150 spaces with just some of that work. So to your point, that's something we're very aware of, to not cripple ourselves too much during construction.
Which project's going to finish?
Technically, they're done. They're just really cleaning up, doing some punch lists, but I think they're occupying the hangar, aren't they?
Yeah, they're occupying the hangar, and they were cleaning up last week, so it looks like we're getting them finally to get most of their stuff cleaned out here. I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any new business? Hearing none, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Yes, Jessica.
Okay. Sylvette, would you call the roll for the executive committee?
Glenn Reedman,
Present.
Mike Stershik, Frank Fasciano,
I'm here.
John Hayes,
Here.
Paul Anthony,
Here.
we have a full house.
Thank you. Any public comment?
No, sir.
I'll take a motion for approval of the meeting minutes for January 23rd. John, second. Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
Approval of Florio Perucci, Steinhardt, Capelli, and Tipton's LLC invoices. Jeez. Are you moving up to partner? We have a motion for that, please? Mike,
I'll second.
second. Paul, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Real quick, what's the update? What's changing?
I'll tell you.
Okay.
Discussion items, the nominating committee chair appointment. I am appointing John Hayes, who has graciously accepted to be the nominating committee chair. Do you have any comments for that?
Just, yes, just a quick comment. Glenn, thank you. A couple things. Number one, if anyone has any interest in serving in any of the roles, please let me know. I'll be reaching out to our existing holders to the extent they're able to continue to serve in those roles. I'll ask them that question as well. We'll come back to the vote, which I think will take in April, if I remember correctly.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
Any new business? Seeing none, I'll take a motion for an executive session. see everyone at noon tomorrow, and I'll take a motion for adjournment.
Thanks, everybody.
Taxing revenue in February is going to be high.
Well,